So we all have seen computers in our homes. We have computers at our homes. We have computers in schools. We also have computers in colleges. You might have seen these computers. Now, so we find computers in most aspects of our daily life, and for some, it is very hard to imagine a world without them. Okay, so in today's world, like, it is very um, difficult for us to actually imagine a world without computers. Okay, so what is a computer? A computer is basically a machine that takes instructions and performs computations based on those instructions. So computer takes instructions. Okay, so it reads the instructions that you give, it processes the instructions, performs some calculations or some computations on the instructions that you give, and it will give some results to you. Okay, so that is what is a computer. And computer comes in many sizes, like it comes from the small size to the large size. And if we just look into how computers looked in the olden days, like in the olden days, like in 1945s or 40, uh, before 1942 and all that, the computers were enormously big. Okay, so they used to be extremely large in size, that they used to fit in an entire room. Okay, so that large computers used to be there. And what was the difficulty then? Okay, so the difficulty was like with the large size of the computer, and also like because they were very large, like it used to take enormous amounts of power to actually process the instructions. And because it was the size of a room, like you can imagine the cost of the computer was also too much, like it was too expensive those days. So um and because it was too expensive, it was just used for limited applications or limited tasks. Like the computers were used only for computing trajectories, for launching the rockets, or they were used for astronomical purposes, or they used to be used for only the military applications. Okay, so because they were very costly, they were used for certain applications, and the priorities was obviously the military and then the astronomical aspects. And what happened was, eventually the technological advancements happened, and the size of the computers became smaller, and the energy requirement of these computers also lowered immensely. Okay, so the energy that these smaller computers took was also lowered. So this was actually the kind of computers that were there in the olden days and now. So in today's world, like you can see computers which are your palm size and all that. So you can imagine like how the computer size have reduced. And coming to how the computers were programmed those days, in those days, like they were called as the first generation computers, and which was like in 1942 and all that. And programming was done in machine language, or machine language means that it comprises of ones and zeros. So any instruction that you give to computer, you have to give it only in ones and zeros. Okay, so that was the first generation computer, and you can imagine how tedious it would have been to write one instruction in ones and zeros. So later on, what happened was, like in 1955, the second generation computers have evolved, wherein in the second generation, programming was done in, you can say, like assembly language have started off and all that. And later on, the third generation programming languages have started in 1964, in between this 1964 and 1975, wherein programming languages like Fortran and COBOL, Pascal, and BASIC and C programming were evolved. You already know, like you have learned C programming in your first semester, wherein you know like C programming was developed in 1970s by Dennis Ritchie. So that was C programming is the third generation programming language. And later on, there were many advancements in the programming languages, from the middle level to again the high level programming languages have evolved in the fourth generation, which was around in between 1975 and 1988. Okay, so wherein the high level programming languages have evolved, like C++ and Java, and in Java, like you can say, like graphical user interfaces also have been evolved. Graphical user interfaces like are like interactive interfaces, where like the fourth generation computer, wherein C++, Java, and all that have evolved. And the fifth generation computers, wherein like the programming was done in high level by Java still sustained in the fifth generation computers, and also Python have evolved in the fifth generation. Okay, and C hash, all these are the languages that we are using today. And from 1990 till present, it is called as the fifth generation computers, where these programming languages, why they are used. Okay, so they are used for scientific purposes, and also for commercial purposes, and interactive online, and multimedia and network applications. For all these purposes, like in the early days, like we saw, like they were used only for military purposes, and very few applications were there because they were very costly and expensive. And later on, what happened was they started the programming languages are used to develop, and these computers were used for many other purposes, like even they were used for the commercial purposes and for businesses and all that, and for network applications and all that. Okay, and coming to the computers, there are many kinds of computers, like you can say mini computers, microcomputers, and all that. And the computers that we talk about, like the laptops and the PCs, come under the category of microcomputers. And these computers have got two parts in it. The first part is the hardware part, and the second one is the software part. Coming to the hardware, like which you can feel, you can touch, and you can feel, that is called as a hardware part. And examples of the hardware are like your input and output parts, or examples are monitor, keyboard, mouse, CPU, all that you can feel. Okay, so you can touch and you can see with your eyes, and you can feel, it is called as the hardware. And these are the physical parts. Okay, right. And coming to the software, why do you need a software? A software is developed to tell computer hardware what to do. Like we computer hardware cannot function without a software. So this software will tell a hardware like what to do. Okay, so they are made for a specific purpose. The hardware is made for a specific purpose, and the functionality of the hardware comes with the software. Okay, and for the hardware to function, it needs a software, and software is a set of programs to instruct what has to be done. And as I said, like software is a set of programs. This is where I'm trying to focus. So the software is a set of programs. Okay, let me get back to what is meant by a program before understanding what are the two kinds of softwares. The two types of softwares that we'll be seeing is, the first one is the system software, and the second one is the application software. Okay, so what is meant by a system software? Okay, system software is a collection of programs that enable user to interact with the hardware components efficiently. Like, so it is like writing programs to initialize your hardware. Like, I hope everybody know how to start a computer, right? Once you click on that off and on button of the computer, like once you click on the on button of the computer, there are certain booting that happens with your operating system. You can see on the screen that your operating system is booting, and the initialization of the hardware is happening. So you can see some display of system summary information on your screen. So all that is nothing but your system software. Okay, so this system software will actually initialize the hardware, the drives that you have, and it will initialize the system registers, and also it will initialize the PMS, which is power management system, and all that. So writing those kind of programs which will actually boot your software, boot your operating system, and actually display some system summary information, all that kind of programs that you write to actually make your hardware work is nothing but your system software. Okay, is it clear what is system software, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now coming to the second kind, which is application software. Okay, so what is meant by an application software? An application software is a collection of programs written for specific application. like what are applications in your computer? For example, you open this MS Word. MS Word is an application, okay, and you open your Notepad. Notepad is an application, okay. You open your browser, right? Your Firefox is an application, your Chrome is an application, your Internet Explorer is an application, your Paint is an application. So all these are applications which are written for specific purpose. Like Paint is for painting, okay, so for doing some painting or virtual painting. And so you can also, your media players, like you can open a media player, Windows media player or something, which will be playing some MP3 or MP4 kind of files. And also you can have some statistical and operational research software. So application softwares are something which are intended for a specific purpose, okay. So they can be library system, or they can be inventory control system, or it can be a media player, or anything is called as an application software. Even your browser is an application software, okay, right. And your compilers, okay, so something which is designed for a specific purpose, okay, so that is called as an application software. So any software, by fact, if I just have to give the definition, it is a set of programs to instruct what has to be done. So the softwares are of two types. So we saw the system software and the application software. Now what is meant by, and what your Python can do, okay, so the Python programming language can be used to develop both application software and system software, okay. So you can use, like, by learning Python, what exactly you can do, like what are your career opportunities, what are your career things. Like once I learn Python, what exactly I can do, you can develop applications, you can develop softwares, you can develop softwares which are system softwares, and also you can develop application softwares, okay. So that's what Python is used for. And coming to the program, what is a program? Okay, so let us get into the details of what is, we said like it's a set of programs, right? So let us see what is program first, okay. A program is a set of instructions that is arranged in a sequence to guide the computer to find a solution for a given problem, okay. So whatever problem like you're solving, so for that you will be giving the solution in a sequence, okay. So you'll be giving the solution in sequence of instructions, and these sequence of instructions will be executed by the computer one after the other, because it's a sequence of execution. So you have to give the sequence, it's not like computer. So computer is an electronics fool, okay, so it doesn't know anything. So don't expect computer to know everything, and whatever your smartness the computer exhibits, that's it, okay. So if you're smart enough, your computer will be smart. If you're not smart, your computer will not be smart, okay. So just understand that simple logic. So you yourself have to write the coding better so that the computer understands it. So if you're writing the program in a non-sequence manner, or whatever you feel like, the computer will execute that in that manner only, and finally you'll end up in a wrong result. So what is a program? A program is a set of instructions that is arranged in a sequence, okay, to guide the computer to find a solution for a given problem. That is a program. So you have to write set of instructions in a sequential manner, so that the sequence of instructions will be a guide to the computer to solve that, for what you have written the program. So the computer will be able to produce that, will be able to solve that. So that is nothing but a program. And what is programming? We are saying programming, right? What is programming? The process of writing programs, okay, is called programming. Okay, right. So there are different program design tools. Okay, so algorithms, flowchart, and pseudocode. So these are the program design tools. So what is an algorithm? So you can see that algorithm is formally defined procedure for performing some calculations. So so you can say like algorithm gives the logic of the program, or it is step-by-step description of how to arrive at a solution. Okay, say for example, I'm asking you to write an algorithm for, it is just it's just like storytelling, or it's an instructions. Say you have never gone to a kitchen, and you're asking your mom to teach you how to make a tea. Okay, so your mom tells you like, first you need to switch on the stove, then put a pan, okay, tea pan on it, and then put some, for how, again she gives you certain measurements, like she tells you, like if it is like you're putting tea for 3 people, then she tells you like 3 cups or 1 cup extra. Okay, so for 3 people, like you'll be putting 4 cups of water in it, or else she'll give you combination of it. She'll say 2 cups of water with 2 cups of milk if people drinks milk, and if it is a black coffee, then black tea, then the scenario is different. So then she tells you like how much powder of tea you need to put for 3 people. Okay, then she gives you the measurement of the sugar, and also she tells you how much time you have to brew it on the stove, and then finally switch off the stove, and then strain it and put it in the cups and serve. And also she'll tell you the sequence of when to add what. She'll tell you first you need to add water, then milk, after the tea has seeped into the water properly after 5 minutes, then you add milk. So she tells you all the sequence. And if she is not giving you the instructions properly, and if you're writing it for the if you're doing tea for the first time, then it would be very difficult for you to actually make it good tea. So here it depends on how your mom is teaching you, how your mom is giving instructions to you. If she is giving the instructions properly, then you will be able to make the tea better. So your algorithm is that. If your algorithm, it's a logic of the program, that is step by step description of how to arrive at a solution. And if it is like a blueprint to writing a program to solve a particular problem. So if your blueprint is not correct, then obviously you don't arrive at a good structure overall. So say for example, you're trying to construct a house, and then your plan should be correct, right? If your plan is having so many flaws in it, obviously the house that you construct will have flaws, because it's just a replica of it. The physical house is a replica of your plan or your blueprint. So your algorithm should be framed properly. And how an algorithm should be, the algorithm should be in such a way that it should end in finite number of steps. It should not be an infinite, like you keep on writing lines by line, and it is too lengthy, and it should not be in such a manner. So it should end somewhere. Okay, and a well defined algorithm always provides a correct answer, and is guaranteed to terminate, and it is guaranteed to terminate. Okay, and the algorithm is implemented. So once you write the algorithm is implemented in programming languages, and it can be C or Java or Python. Okay, now to give you an example of an algorithm to add 2 numbers, so you can say like step 1 is start, then in the step 2, like you are saying, declare variables number 1, number 2, and sum. Then read the values number 1 and number 2. And in next step, you are saying add number 1 and number 2 and assign the result to sum. Then you are saying display sum. Okay, so this is how you write an algorithm. Now coming to the flow chart. Okay, so flow chart is another way of your design tool, program design tool, and which is graphical or symbolic representation of the process. What does flowchart do? Flowchart helps the programmer to understand the logic of complicated and lengthy problems, even though it is time consuming activity. Okay, so imagine drawing a flowchart for 100 lines. Okay, so it is time consuming and it is a tedious task. You will be choosing to draw a flowchart only in scenarios where the logic is a bit complicated. Okay, and it is difficult to understand. Then you will be drawing this flowchart. Okay, and it's a symbolic representation. So there is certain symbols, like for reading and writing you will be using parallelogram, and for declaring the variables and for doing some arithmetic evaluations you will be using a rectangle, and for start and stop you will be using a circled rectangle, an oval in fact. Okay, so all these are the symbols that you will be using to draw a flowchart. And coming to the third design tool, which is a pseudocode. So before writing a solution for the problem, before implementing the solution, you have to choose any one of them. Either you can choose algorithms, or you can choose the flowchart, or you can choose the pseudocode to actually give the solution step by step. Okay, then only once you are very sure that your pseudocode or your algorithm is correct, it is leading to the correct solution, then only you have to implement it in the programming language. So here the major time will be taken to write the algorithm only. To implement the algorithm into programming language, it will take very less time. Provided that you know all the constructs of the programming language, it will be very easy for you to implement it in a specific programming language. Now coming to the pseudocode. Okay, pseudocode is a high level description of an algorithm. Okay, in algorithm, like you can use the normal terms, but what you do is in pseudocode, what you do is you'll say number one, number two, and sum, and then you'll say output, okay, input, sum, and such kind of words you'll be using in the pseudocode. Okay, so the pseudocode for to add two numbers will be begin number one comma number two comma sum, and then output input number one, input number one, output input number two, and then input number two, and then sum is equal to number one plus number two, and then output sum and end. Okay, so this is how you write your pseudocode. So before implementing it in any of the programming languages, it is very important for you to write the algorithms. The next one is like once you implement it in the programming language, so it can be Python or it can be C or it can be Java or whatever, this algorithm is universal. Like you write the algorithm, but implementing it in the programming language, you need to know the constructs of the programming language. An algorithm can be implemented in any of the programming languages. Okay, right. And once you write the program, there can be certain kinds of errors that will be erased. The first one is the runtime errors. Okay, what do you mean by runtime errors? Runtime errors will be occurred during execution of the program. And examples of the runtime error are like if you're trying to divide a number by zero. Okay, so you cannot divide a number by zero, right? So such kind of errors, like in case if array is out of bounds, you have declared the array to be 10 and the index numbers are from 0 to 9 only, but you are trying to access array 10. Okay, so these are boundary errors that you generally encounter, and they need to be very carefully handled. Such kind of errors are something which are called as runtime errors. And runtime errors, it will show you. It will show you that these are the runtime errors. But the problem is like the program will abruptly stop. Okay, so the program will stop execution, and in the middle. So your program will stop in the middle, and during the execution, it will stop. Okay, right. So what you have to do to actually handle the runtime errors? To handle the runtime errors, you can use this exception handling techniques and all that. We'll see those concepts when I discuss the Python constructs. And the second type of errors are the syntax errors. Okay, syntax errors are the errors that will occur during the compile time. Okay, so why do syntax errors occur? Syntax errors are like you forgot to put a semicolon at the end of, because you people are more familiar with the C programming. So I'm giving you an example of the C programming because it's very structured programming language. It's very strict with the syntax. If you're not putting a semicolon to terminate the statement for a C programming, it will give you an error. Such kind of errors are called as syntax errors. And why you get a syntax error? It's because you don't know the you haven't studied the rules of the programming language, and you have violated the programming language rules. So it's very important that to avoid syntax errors, it's very important that you learn the programming language very well. Okay, and the next kind of errors are the linking errors. In case you want to link a predefined function in your program, and that predefined function is not available. You have given the wrong package name, or you have given the wrong header file, and the function is not found. Such kind of things are the linker errors. So you also need to know like where the predefined functions in which package they are in. So adi meer teliyakunda, if you just use them, then again you will get the linker errors, because it doesn't know where the method is. Okay, so the method need to be found in the packages that you specify. Okay, and the next kind of errors are the logical or the semantic errors. Logical errors, your nobody can detect. It is your logic. Okay, say for example, I want the sum of two numbers. So I need to say sum is equal to a plus b. But rather than putting a plus there, I have put a minus. Is it wrong? Your compiler, obviously that is not what your program says, your question says. But you have done a mistake by putting a minus in place of plus. That is a logical error. It's a semantic error, which your compiler don't know. Compiler thinks that, okay, maybe you wanted a minus there. So compiler will not detect it. It's not a runtime error. So runtime error also will not occur. But what will happen with the logical errors is that you will end up with the wrong answer. So you wanted to find the sum of two numbers, but you will end up getting the difference between the two numbers. So that is logical errors. You should be very careful with the logical errors. So logical errors, you while writing a program, you need to be very careful so that the logical errors, you should have your mind and soul into writing a program. Okay, so that you give the result of the intended question. What the question says, that result you have to give. Okay, so this is regarding the program things. Okay, so I hope everybody understood what is a program and what is programming and what are the different kinds of errors and how to actually solve these errors. Emma?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So before writing the program, what should you do? You should write an algorithm, right? You have to write an algorithm, or you should write a pseudocode. You should write the solution first in terms of an algorithm or a flowchart or a pseudocode. Okay, and there can be many solutions for a problem. Okay, so you have to write all the possible solutions for a particular problem and then decide which is better. Okay, so you can decide like which solution will actually give you the better results in terms of maybe I have written two algorithms for a question. Like I'm saying, I want to find out the sum of two numbers. To find the sum of two numbers, I have written two algorithms, meaning that I have written two solutions. Okay, so the first solution wherein I have written three lines of code, and in the second solution I have written 10 lines of code. But both are serving the purpose. Both are actually doing the addition of two numbers. But you have to decide like which one is efficient. Efficient meaning that which can be executed faster, which is having less number of lines, which takes less time to give you the results. Okay, so that thing you have to do prior to writing the program or implementing the program in the programming language. So that you have to develop the skill of writing the algorithms. So once you write the algorithm, you can implement it even in C, any programming language that you know. Because you already know C, you can also implement it using C. You can also implement it using Python. Okay, right. So with this, you might have understood that Python is a programming language. Okay, so let us try to look into the definition of what is Python. Okay, Python is a widely used general purpose, okay, high level interpreted object oriented programming language. Okay, so Python is a widely used general purpose high level interpreted object oriented programming language. Okay, so why did we say that it is general purpose? Is because you will be using Python to develop applications for anything. It can be a web-based application, or it's an web application, or it can be an application related to data science, or it can be an application related to big data, or it can be application related to system software or anything. Okay, so Python is widely used. Okay, so it is widely used because I said it's estimated that 8.2 million developers use Python, meaning that if I take the programmers community, okay, so if I take the programmers community, among the programmers community, 32% of the programmers use Python. So you can see the graph, you can see, if you can visualize, like almost it is reaching to 50%. Emma, so that means that it is widely used. Okay, so that's why I said like it is widely used. Everybody understood why did I say it is widely used?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it is widely used because 32% of the programmers or the developers across the globe, okay, I'm referring to the programmers across the globe. So 32% of the programmers across the globe use this Python for many applications. Okay, so it can be a web application, or it can be a big data application, or be it a data scientist application, network application, or any kind of application. Okay, so they are using Python. Okay, and why did we say like it is high level? Because high level programming languages look like your English language. Okay, so they're very close to your English language. So if you just read a Python program, you'll just feel like you're reading an English text. So it is very close to the human rather than the computer. Okay, so that's why it is called as high level. Why it is a point that we are talking about, why high level is a point that we are discussing about, is because it's very close to English language, people can learn it very easily. Okay, so it is very easy for people to learn, because people who will know English, it will be very easy for them to learn high level. Okay, and it is an interpreted programming language. Your C is not interpreted, your C is compiled programming language, because there are two steps there. The first step is compiling. Your compiler will produce an object code, and this compiled code, this compiler will actually identify the errors that I talked about, the syntax errors, like the rules that you need to follow for writing a program in a programming language. So you before converting your algorithm into a particular programming language, you need to know the programming language tokens, or you need to know the programming language constructs and the syntax and the rules of a programming language, so that you can implement it efficiently in a programming language. So that implementation, your C programming, what happens is you write the code, your source code, which is a .c extended file. So you give it to your compiler. So it can be a Turbo C compiler, or it can be a GCC compiler, or it can be a different, any kind of compiler. You give it to the compiler. So what does the compiler do? Compiler converts the source code into an object code. Before converting it into the object code, it checks for whether there are any syntax errors, like whether the rules of the programming language are violated. If the rules of the programming languages are violated, it will show you the errors line by line. It will tell you this line you have missed something like this line you have missed something. So you need to go back to your source code, rectify all those errors that your compiler is showing you. And once you rectify, again, you have to recompile it. Okay, so you have to recompile it till all the syntax errors are fixed. Okay, so then only once it is sure that everything is intact, all the syntax, all the rules are, all the rules are there, it will not, your compiler will not check for the logical errors, girls. Logical errors it doesn't check, because it doesn't know what, for what you have written the program. It will only check for the syntax and for the which are nothing but the rules of the programming language. So once it is sure that there are no syntax errors, it will convert the code into the object code. And now this object code, you will be executing it. Okay, so this object code is executed. So wherein you will be getting the result. Okay, so which is nothing but your machine code. So which will be executed by your internal machine. Okay, so that's what is called as your, that's how the process of executing a C program. But here in Python, what happens is you don't have this compiler phase. Okay, so it just interprets. Interpretation means like line by line execution of the code. That's why we say that Python is slower than the other programming languages. I want all of you to note this point. I said Python is slower than other programming languages. Then there should be a question mark now in your mind, that I said Python is slower than C programming or Java or whatever. But I'm saying Python is widely used programming language. If it is slow, why people is preferring Python, I will address it in future classes. Okay, as of now, just understand that Python is a high level interpreted programming language. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, So what is C programming language? What is it? Can you tell me? Is C programming object oriented? Have you heard about object oriented when you studied about C programming?
No, madam. It's procedure oriented.
It is procedure oriented. Wonderful. Very good. Okay. So C programming is a procedural oriented programming language, which you can call it as the paradigm of the programming languages. Okay. I have made a detailed video with my Java lectures. Like you can go and watch that. I have made a video which is called as programming paradigms in my Java tutorials. You can use this Sinu and Sudha YouTube channel. So you can go to this Java tutorials playlist, and wherein I think the second video or the third video is the programming paradigms. So you can just have a look at this particular programming paradigms. So C programming is a procedural paradigm. Paradigm is an inclination. Okay, so you say that it is very well structured. That's what I'm telling you, that the syntax plays a very major role here, and each and everything you need to tell. Okay, so that is what is called as procedural oriented programming language. And now coming to object oriented programming language, examples of object oriented programming languages are Java, C++, Python. All these are examples of object oriented programming languages. What does mean by object oriented programming languages? Object oriented to actually model the real world applications into object oriented programming. Okay. So say for example, I'm saying like okay, so I need to develop an application for banking. Okay, so what I can do is I can say bank as my class, because here in object oriented programming you have different constructs like class, object, and all that. So I can make bank as my class, and inside the bank, like what are the operations that the customers can do, I can list out all the operations as methods inside the class bank. And also I can list out all the attributes, all the data that is required by the banking, for the banking. For example, the account number, the balance, the name of the customer, and also the bank balance of the customer, all that as data. Okay, so it is very easy in object oriented programming. It is very easy to actually model the real world objects. So that's why object oriented programming has become very popular. Okay, so the reason why object oriented programming like Java has become very popular is because of its object oriented scenario. Object orientation means that the real world objects can be easily converted into applications. Okay, so like I have given you an example. Even this video I have made it. I made students understand what is meant by object oriented programming with this banking application. So you can check my, because Python and Java both are object oriented programming languages. You needn't go through the entire Java tutorial, but you can just go through certain things which are related to object orientation. Am I clear, girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Python is open source, and all this we'll see. I think I have run out of time, so it is already 1:52. So I'll close this session.